This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.
Hello, welcome to The Fourth Draft. I'm your host, Erin Trafford, and we're going to keep things simple today. Simple. We're going to simplify to succeed. So I'm going to jump right into it. But before I do, just FYI, if you want any information about this show, The Fourth Draft, about any of the shows that we produce at Story Studio Network, make sure you're checking out the show notes. They're pretty robust. And the best way to get in touch with me is to get at me on LinkedIn. Or if you feel ready, there is a link there to book a call. We can have a 15-minute chit chat, see where things go. So I would encourage you to do that if you feel so inclined. But for today, episode 6, we're going to keep this really simple. We're going to talk about how to simplify your media strategy so that you succeed. Complicated right now is not working. In fact, I would be so bold as to say it never works when you overly complicate something. But here's what I see happen, and it's a behavior that if you're entertaining, it's not your fault. It's not your fault if you feel like all of a sudden you're under this really complicated strategy. Because if you listen to a lot of the noise out there, the noise is telling you to be everywhere. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be everywhere. We're going to focus back in on some core principles that I think are going to become even more critical in 2025 and beyond. Complexity is killing your strategy. So today I want to talk about why simple is not only better, but it is going to be necessary for you in order to succeed in 2025. And this is certainly true if you deal with complex issues, right? Complex issues actually require simpler communication. They require more specific types of communication. So that's the entire episode for today. Simple and specific. And I just want to start with a little bit of an anecdote to make you feel a bit at ease, because you're probably like, oh goodness, Erin's going to make me make decisions today. And that's true. I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm going to make you think about where you might be avoiding making some decisions that once you make is going to make your life easier. So I talk to a lot of very high level, high operators in my day-to-day with Story Studio Network, like a lot. We're talking clients that have multi-million-dollar budgets, that have massive teams, right down to, some of my best friends are also very high operators, but they're solopreneurs. So some of my girlfriends run multi six-figure businesses, and it's just them, which is remarkable in and of itself. I have done that as a solopreneur. It wasn't for me. I like having a team. I like running an agency model. It feels really good for me. Took me a while to learn that. Anyway, my point is that I touch a lot of people who have a lot of different moving parts and different ways that their businesses and their comms strategies look on the day-to-day. And here's the commonality that I see. And really what inspired today's episode is that when those businesses or organizations or whatever kind of noun you want to use there find themselves at the complexity tipping point with their media strategy, one of two things happens. Either they run really fast toward it and they burn out because their teams are doing too much. They have too many things on the go. It actually stops them from being able to harness potential opportunities because if you think of your comm strategy as like a basket or a vessel, there's so much already being poured into it that they can't handle anymore, even if and when a great opportunity comes up. So you're punting things down the line. You're not optimizing. So that happens. Or the other thing that happens if you hit that tipping point of complexity and you've taken on too much in your comm strategy and your media strategy is that you just stop doing everything. And you turtle right up and you stop being able to make movements on any one of your projects. I'm sure you've heard the adage, you're smart, And it's, if you visualize, you're standing on the shore, and I love this because I live right on the shore, right across from an island. So this is very real for me. So if you're standing on the shore and your task is to get to the island, right? And you're given a whole bunch of tools and materials to build a bridge. The best way for you to get to that island is to take all of your materials and build one really solid bridge that's going to get you there. If you start to build 5 different bridges of different types and sizes and functionalities all at the same time, you're either going to run out of materials or your bridge will fall down. You will never get to the island. So this is what happens when you hit the complexity tipping point and you need to start simplifying. And I tell you this with all the love in my heart because, like I said, it doesn't matter whether your organization is enormous and the message you're delivering is very complex, or you are a solopreneur, you're a consultant or a coach or an accountant or whatever. It happens to everyone. You will hit this point and you're going to have to pull back. So if you're overwhelmed, you're building too many bridges, or maybe you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, like shit, what do I have left? We just spun our wheels for 6 months and we've got nothing to show for it, right? Let's talk about this. So the problem really is this overwhelm problem. You're trying to be everywhere all at once, and it causes you either to be nowhere because you're not doing anything really well, or you end up in complete paralysis. So the antidote to that is to go back to your audience. I know. You thought that I was going to say, pick a platform. Pick a platform. That's what a social media strategist would say. They would say, pick a platform and stand on that platform and just use that one. No. You can't pick a platform until you decide which audience matters. So look at your team. How does your team function? Do you have quarterly team meetings? Do you have every 6 months, twice a year? I don't think you should go longer than 6 months. So pick one of those two. And I think a month is too short of a time period. So pick a quarter or pick 6 months, one or the other, 90 days or 6 months. And I want you to look at who are the key 3 to 4 audiences that you need to cultivate. Remember in the episode, I think this was the last episode, it might have been 2 before, we talked about this advocacy iceberg, right? As you go down that awareness iceberg, who are the audiences that you need to touch in order to solidify that advocacy? So for some of you, this might be, millennial moms in their 30s. It might be policymakers. It might be your membership, depending on what the structure of your organization is. Maybe you're looking to bolster engagement with your members. Did I already say politicians? It could be politicians. It could be other business owners. Could be partnership kind of things, right? There's a whole beautiful stew of people that it could be. But I want you to pick. And then I want you to assign a quarter to that audience. I don't want you to necessarily pick a platform yet. That'll come. And I want you to spend the first 10 days of that quarter getting to know that audience. What are they reading? Where are they showing up? What is their life like? What emotional trigger points? Remember, we were talking a lot about emotions this season. What emotional trigger points do you need to agitate in order to activate advocacy in that particular demographic? And don't spend the whole quarter answering those questions. Spend like a week, 10 days, whatever that may be at the beginning. And from there, the next step is not pick a platform yet, guys. Don't pick a platform yet. You're going to burn out. The next question you have to ask yourself is, okay, if this is the emotional agitation point, let's look at the spectrum. Maybe the emotional agitation point is you really got to make them angry about food security. You really got to make them angry about tax laws. You really got to make them angry about, maybe it's not anger. Let's switch gears. You got to make them realize how much good work you've done. Make them see the myth and the truth, right? Maybe you're working in natural resources and you've really come up against this public perception that you are a boogeyman, and you're really not. You've done some really excellent work. So you've really got to pull at their heartstrings and show, look, here's where we were in 1970 and here's where we are in 2025. And look at all the good work we've done, right? Maybe you need to inspire a little bit of optimism and hope in them. So I want you to find that emotional trigger. And there will be many, but I want you to pick one, just one for sake of this exercise. And then I want to look at all of the emotions that are kind of around those emotions. So if you're going to inspire optimism, you need to pique curiosity because you got to get them to ask questions. You got to get them to lean in, right? If you're going to inspire optimism, you also a little bit might want to lean on the side of what I say is affable, humorous, approachable, because we need to feel safe when we want to feel optimistic. And when we're in an environment that's approachable, that's affable, that's reflective of imperfection, because we're all human and we all put our pants on one leg at a time. Those are kind of the emotions that sit all around that bucket. If you're on the anger side, you want to think about outrage, which is probably one step further than anger. You might want to think about fear. You might want to think about guilt. Ew, I don't like talking about these, but they work. Okay. So think about all the emotions that are around there. And then I want you to look at all of your messaging. I want you to look at all of it. I want you to see where you can align some of that messaging with some of those emotions. How can you hook them with those emotions that are all around it? And from there, ask yourself, what kind of content will be the easiest at getting them to feel that? Now you can pick your platform. Now you can pick your platform. So, is it going to be video? Do you need to show them some visuals? Is it going to be podcasting? Do you need to get them to sink deeply, deeply, deeply into a topic or your content? It's going to be a combination of those two things. Many cases it is. Is it more that you need them just to see the wide range of things that you do? In which case, it probably is a social media play, a higher volume play, a higher touch point play. Is it that you need them to give you something, tell you how they feel? Okay, well, a newsletter strategy might work really well in tandem with a video or a podcast there. So you can start to pick your platform, but don't just go out and say, okay, team, this month, I read on the interwebs that LinkedIn is the place where leaders go, so we're going to go on LinkedIn. No, that might be the answer, but I want you to put the time in to understanding why. Because once you do, being on LinkedIn will be more simple. You'll know exactly why you're there. Part of the overwhelm and complexity comes from you being all the places and not really knowing why. Why are we building 5 bridges when we can just build one really solid bridge based on intention? Okay. So that is how you do, folks. That is how you do. That is how I have done for the last 12 years. And I realized I was a bit of a unicorn when I started telling people that this is how I do. And they were like, oh, you don't just use all the robots and crank out all the content and put it everywhere and hope that it works on a prayer? No, we definitely do not do that. We become really intentional. And here's the other thing is that when you're intentional about this stuff, your audience feels it. They feel it. They don't feel like they're being broadcast to. They feel like you have put some time and effort into meeting them where they are. And that's the key here. It becomes so simple. And then, of course, from there, we talked about this as one of the big trends. That's where you can leverage your AI system. So then you can look at where in this process does this feel super, super crunchy, right? Can we use AI to uncrunch that, knowing that it's on a base of immense intentionality? You can look at batching. You can look at ways to facilitate more flow in the process because now you really have a solid intention. So when you simplify, you create room for what really matters, which is the trust, the connection, the growth. So I'm going to recommend, if you've got the bandwidth, do this quarterly and let it start to build. So maybe in Q1, you run this exercise and you decide for Q1, we're going to focus on this intentionality on LinkedIn. And what that's going to lead to is in Q2, we're going to finally be able to start launching our longer form content. And we're going to bring our audience from Q1 into it. And we're also going to use it as a way to connect to this other audience that we haven't really been able to reach yet. And then in Q3, what we're going to do is we're going to keep all of this running, and we're just going to cook along, and we're going to use it as a point of measurement. I recommend at least 1 quarter a year. Don't change anything. Just keep talking to your people. Keep fulfilling their expectation. Keep showing up and maybe refining that process a little. And then in Q4, we're going to look at this newer audience, and we're going to go really big on that other platform that we haven't used yet, because this other kind of elusive audience is over there. By the end of a 12-month cycle, you will have an entirely new media plan. You will have new audience. And if you're playing it right, you'll have a whole bunch of media, content, and story-based assets that you did not have before, which again will simplify your approach to the following year. And this is why, folks, I say you cannot build this in a day. To rebuild and simplify, decomplexify your media approach, you need to be in it to win it for at least 12 months. At least. So the time to start is now. The time to start asking these questions and building out this plan and digging into these audiences is now. Because you will feel so much better. It's kind of like that whole thing about like, ooh, there's never really a good time to start working out at the gym, but the best time to do it was yesterday, so you might as well start today. It's like kind of that mentality. But the result is so beautiful. It's that you have this trust in your audience. You have this clarity in your process. You also have hella improved metrics. You're not guessing anymore. You start to really get clear on what you're measuring and why. And you know what that does? That gives you some rallying points for both internal comms and external comms. Because you're focused. Everybody's aligned. Everybody knows what you're doing. Everybody knows where you're going. Everybody knows where you've been. It's excellent. So, just to recap, I want to recap. Can we recap? Simplifying your media strategy is not about cutting corners. It's not about using AI and robots to do your work for you. It actually means focusing on where is your audience, what drives results, doing it in a formulaic manner to build trust, engagement, action, and advocacy. So even if you don't do 12 months, I'm going to encourage you to just run this exercise for like a quarter and see what happens. Drop me a line, drop me a comment, and let me know the outcome. And if you're feeling super stuck and you want help, you don't have anyone on your team to help you facilitate this kind of build, hit me up. We can work together for a quarter. I can help you build it up. And then you guys will be off to the races. It's what I love to do. All right, next time on the show, we're going to dive into this whole idea of repurposing, slice and dice. Because there's a way to do it awesome, and then there's a way to do it awesomer. Because I'm not against the slice and dice. I think it's really an important strategy. It's not for everyone, and I'm going to give you some really cool alternatives that we use as Story Studio Network that might get you thinking in new ways about what it means to repurpose your content. Sound good? And then I think after that, I might give you some quick and dirties, like 5 to 7 minute episodes on like really, really hard-hitting tactical things I want you to think about. Anyway, we'll see. I have so many ideas. I'm full of them. Check the show notes for more details. I'm Erin Trafford. This is The Fourth Draft. Thank you for listening.
This is Story Studio Network.